Since humans first evolved on this earth, we've had two desires. That is, to go quick and to suck dick. So if you haven't heard, Forza Horizon 5 recently got ported to the PS5, which is crazy considering that's like Xbox's thing and now it's on PlayStation. I'm not really sure what their business strategy is because so far it seems like just give away all their exclusives and then jack up all their prices, so hope it works out for them. Anyway, I got some thoughts and some things I want to talk about with Forza Horizon 5, and so I'm going to do that today. So let's begin. I have no idea how to like write a review or how to like organize my thoughts properly, so I'm just gonna wing it, dude. So the first thing you'll notice about Forza Horizon 5 is probably the graphics, because they are insane. Now, I'm not one of those people that like thinks that graphics is like the be-all end-all. If everything else sucks as long as the game looks good, I think that's stupid. That being said though, Forza Horizon 5 looking like it does is incredibly important, I think. I think the biggest appeal for a game like this is the fact that it's like that kind of like heightened realism. Because like, yeah, I can drive a car in real life, but what I can't do is take a Corvette and go top speed down a highway, because one, that's illegal, and two, I'm not gonna be able to afford a Corvette anytime soon. You kidding me? The nicest thing I've bought recently is this Yu-Gi-Oh shirt, and it was like $10. But the visuals in this game are like actually insane. There's a part in the intro where you're driving like a Porsche through a jungle area, and there's like a section where you like drive in and you hit some water and it splashes on the car, and it looks better than real life. It's crazy. I was so distracted looking at the nice graphics that I almost crashed into a tree. Look at all the water droplets. Okay. Let's worry about how pretty the game is later. And that's not even mentioning just how beautiful Mexico is. I've never been to Mexico, so I don't know how like accurate the game is, but it looks gorgeous. And just driving these like supercars through this beautiful area is just, it's like you can't really get that anywhere else. So I do think that is this game's like biggest selling point, is just that whole experience. But moving on from the visuals, let's talk about the gameplay. Because yes, while it is very pretty, if it doesn't feel good to play, it kind of doesn't matter. And fortunately, it does feel great to play. All the cars control nice and are smooth to drive, unless you're obviously driving a car that has like bad handling or whatever, or are just like purposely driving some like piece of shit. So yeah, the overall presentation and feel of the game is like top notch, like feels great to drive, looks great to look at. But now I'm gonna throw a couple negatives out there. Right off the bat, the progression I feel kind of iffy about, because at the very start of the game you get a Ford Bronco, a Corvette Stingray, and a GTR Supra, I think. I'm not a car guy, so fucking I don't know what any of that means. But my point is, you start off with very nice cars, and the whole like idea is that you're some like big superstar guy, which is the story, which I'll talk about the story in a second. But yeah. But then also when you play for like an hour, you like win a bunch of really nice cars. There's also like a whole gift thing, which you don't have to claim, but like it's just sitting there. You get like a whole whack of cars, like a Bugatti, and like really nice expensive cars. And that's not even mentioning that you can win a bunch of stuff from like the wheel spin gambling system. Oh my god, they have gambling in this game? Epic black suede biker jacket. I've always wanted one of those. Within like 2 hours of playing, you can have like a really stacked garage, because there's no like progression where you're starting off with some like rinky-dink car and then working your way up to a Corvette. You're just being given that immediately. And I do think that's like a little bit of the appeal, is that you're just like, it's more of like a simulation kind of thing, where it's more of just like a wish fulfillment fantasy thing where you're like, I just want to drive really nice cars through Mexico. And like, that's fine, but it's just kind of like the game lacks a lot of motivators outside of your own desire to just like race and get more cars. The only semblance of progression is probably upgrading your car, and there's like car mastery, so you get like skill points that like give you more XP when you do certain things, like, which is something and gives you something to do. It's not like there's like zilch once you play for an hour, you're like, all right, I've seen it all. Because I do think the main appeal is all the races and the off-roading and all that kind of stuff, and the different like, you know, the spectacle of it all, which is great. But for me personally, I just wish there was like a little bit more for like to like feel like I'm working towards something, instead of just being like, all right, what next? Well, actually, what next is often answered by the insanely cluttered map. The second you like kind of do a couple expeditions, which are these things that like you do this one story mission and then that unlocks a bunch of races in the area, which I do actually like that way of doing things. But opening the map is like so overstimulating. There's just so many icons, which on the one hand kind of feeds my little gamer brain, being like, look at all this stuff I got to do. But then also it's a little bit of that like, you know, decision paralysis where you're like, I got too much shit to choose from. I don't even know where to first start, so I'll kind of just like drive around aimlessly for like 20 minutes and then be like, okay, I'm gonna go now. But also it's an open world racing game, and so you can't really just like, it can't be like super linear or whatever. So maybe I'm talking to my ass with that one, but you know, this is just my own personal thoughts on the game. Another thing I'm a little bit torn on is the rewind feature. On the one hand, it's like a lifesaver. It's amazing. Basically, just anytime you make like a little bit of a mess up, you can just press triangle and rewind the like to last like 5-10 seconds. And it's great when you make a big mistake, or like you did something that was like kind of unavoidable, or like maybe it's just like the physics messed up and you hit a ramp and you didn't land quite right. For that stuff, it's great because it can like save the whole race and I don't have to restart now. But on the other hand, I kind of feel like I have to strive for perfection because I have the option to do so, which can kind of throw off the momentum of a race because, like, you know, I'll fuck up a corner slightly and I know I can recover, but I can also be like, well, I could just rewind a bit and fix it. It's something that since I noticed I was doing it, I've tried to since correct it. Like this one race I did where I was driving a Nissan GTR, I just kept driving and it kind of felt, it felt good. Like it felt grungy and like a real like street race kind of, I don't know about I say that, a real street race, like I've been in one. But it was nice to just like keep trucking forward even though my car looked like shit by the end of it, but it felt cool, you know? And I think that's the most important thing, is that like in a game like this, I'm like, I want to feel cool, all right? Which early on, I didn't feel cool because the difficulty for this game was like brain dead easy. Like in the early races, you would pull ahead just a little bit, like early on in the race, and there would be no hope of anyone ever catching up to you, which made the racing kind of boring because every time I went into one, I knew I was gonna win. Until the game asked me to bump up the difficulty, which made it so much better. Because while I still win most of the races, it's one, way more intense, and two, it actually feels like I'm racing against like somewhat competent AI. It just feels 10 times better, and it's so satisfying now when there's like a guy that's been ahead of you for most of the race and you just pull ahead at the very end. It is so satisfying, and I feel like I feel like Lightning McQueen when I do that shit. Ah, come on, let's fucking go! Ooh, eat my ass, dude, let's go. But now I'm going to talk about my least favorite part of the game. And it's easily the story mode, or whatever you want to call it. It's barely a story. The basic premise of Forza Horizon 5 is that your character is like some big superstar from the UK, I guess, or I haven't played earlier Horizon games, so I don't know if that like carries on or whatever. But you start the game, you're like a mega star, and that's like the whole attraction of these different like expeditions and this big festival going on in Mexico, is that people are here to see you do cool shit. Which I feel like would hit a lot more if I felt like I earned that and wasn't just like told I'm super cool and awesome. And the problem with being like a big mega superstar right off the bat is that it's like a little bit of ludonarrative dissonance if you kind of suck at the game like I do, because it's like I'm supposed to be like the top dog, best racer on the fucking globe, and yet I'm like fumbling. I'm like crashing into walls and shit. And it makes me wish that we were like an up and coming racer and there was like a different guy who was already a superstar, established guy. Basically, I want him to be like Chick Hicks, or what's that guy's name from Cars 3's Jackson Storm? Like, make him like a cocky asshole. That sounds weird. He shows up at like every race and he's like taunting you and shit. I think it would be so cool, and like give it a little bit more like friction. I know that's kind of like maybe that not the point, and that's probably, it sounds more like Need for Speed, but it's like, I don't know, I think that would have been cool and given the story a little bit more like substance. It still would have been goofy as hell, but I'm like, I don't know, I think it would have been fun. Because even with the expeditions where right now you're a superstar, so like the whole idea is that people are looking for you to do these crazy things like drive around a volcano or, you know, fly off a cliff or whatever. You could even have that be explained as like that is like too dangerous, or like the fancy guy classes that as too dangerous, and you're like Daredevil, so you're like, I'll do it, and that's like, you know, yeah, it's something to prove, you know? I don't fucking know, I'm just riffing here. This might just make no sense at all. But yeah, the story in its current form is just so like corporate and like sanitized, and just feels very like it just kind of makes me feel like I'm playing a game for babies. Like there's an expedition where you gotta like drive into a storm, and it's like super cool, and you got like this guy, I can't remember his name, but he's like flying an airplane into it, and like your character's like, oh, be careful, buddy, and then the other guy is like, oh, this storm's getting pretty rough, I'm gonna go land. And it's like, clearly he was not gonna actually get fucking struck by lightning or something, so it just felt so, like, it just felt weird when I was playing. I was just kind of like, what the fuck is it? What are we doing here, man? Like, I'm sure the idea is supposed to be like the spectacle of like, whoa, you're driving, you see a plane flying overhead and go into the storm, and it's like, it's a cool visual. So yeah, that might just be me, and maybe people like the story are able to ignore it a lot better than I am, because obviously I can't, it doesn't like ruin the game for me. It's just something that I'm like, oh man, this game would be just like so much better if it actually had a little bit of like a linear story and had something more to work with there. I think that would have been so sick. Oh my god, I completely forgot about this. I just looked at my notes here. The microtransactions in this game, I don't really care for. They're at least like not in your face, but I still don't love them. I realize you could argue that this is just DLC, but I'm like, this is already like a $90 game. I should not have to pay extra to get cars in my car game. I should be able to earn them in the game I paid for. I don't like it. Anyway, moving on. But what I don't like is that, this one's kind of on me, but when I was watching reviews for the game before it actually officially released on PS5, reviewers were saying, or people that I was watching at least, they were saying that the Hot Wheels thing and the Rally Adventure come bundled with the game. And so I was like, cool. I didn't look at the PlayStation Store all that well, and that's on me. So when I got past the prologue intro, whatever thing it was, the game's like, oh, do you want to go look at the Hot Wheels and Rally Adventure? I was like, fucking boy, do I. And so I drove all the way over there just for it to fucking hit me with a purchase screen, and I was like, what's up with that, man? So while me not looking at the PlayStation Store is on me, the game being like, hey, you can go do this thing now when I fucking can't, is kind of, that's kind of bullshit. I think that's stupid. I can't even play the Hot Wheels expansion. I have to buy it? Well, that kind of sucks. Man, why even advertise it to me then? Like, at the very least, like, gray it out or put a lock symbol or like something along those lines. Just instead of it being like I'm just like, because it's not the end of the world. I had to, it was like 5 minutes for me to drive over there, but it's still like, come on, man. I was real excited, fucking dreaming of all the Hot Wheels shit I was gonna do just for the game to be like, oh, actually, you're broke as shit. So fuck you. I was very sad. All right. Anyway, the TLDR of all this is that the game is at its absolute best when you're just like driving through Mexico in a cool car, or like doing top speed down a highway or something like that, or when you like hit that like super satisfying like pull ahead in a race, and like visuals and everything. That is definitely when the game is at its strongest, and fortunately that is where the game is at most of the time. And the game is definitely at its worst when it comes to like the story stuff. The second basically anytime I don't have control over the car I'm driving and there's like a bunch of yapping that has to go on, I immediately just fucking check out, and I'm like, whatever, dude. And the game kind of lacks some motivators for progression. Again, the main motivators are just like, hey, the racing's fun, don't you want to do more of that? And then maybe your own desire to buy like fancier cars and stuff, but I just kind of wish there was like a little bit more there. Maybe if you won some more cars during races or got more money or something along those lines. I don't fucking know. I just wish there was like a little bit more to chew on with that. But maybe that's just me. But overall, I'm enjoying my time with Forza Horizon 5. I really like the game. I'm glad I got it. And I hope this video was interesting, or I don't know. I've never done something like this before, so this might just be a fucking mess, dude. But if you thought it was interesting, let me know. The next video will be Marvel Rivals, I promise. It's just that needs a little bit more time to cook, and I had some things I wanted to yap about. Anyway, that's all I got for today, so thanks for listening to me ramble, and I will see you later. You guys want to see how high I can jump? That's how high I can jump.